You know that moment you're trying to watch something in English or maybe listen to native speakers chatting,
Hmm.
and it just feels like this unbroken stream of sound?
Yeah, like they're mumbling a mile a minute.
Exactly. Like it all just blends into one big, fast jumble.
Okay, let's unpack this feeling a bit.
That sensation, where everything just runs together. It can sound almost like a foreign language, even though it technically is English. It can be incredibly frustrating for learners.
Totally. And that's precisely what we're diving into today. We've got some fantastic material that one of you sent in, a lesson really focused on boosting your ability to understand these rapid-fire English conversations.
Right.
So our mission today, basically to pull out the absolute core insights from that lesson
Yeah, the really actionable stuff.
and hand you steps so you can feel more confident, more empowered when listening to spoken English. We want to cut through that feeling of being overwhelmed.
And leave you feeling informed and ready to actually tackle those speedy exchanges.
So at the heart of this deep dive, we're going to be exploring, well, practical methods to really amp up your comprehension of fast English.
Okay.
The lesson you shared highlights a pretty fascinating 4-step listening method
Right, I saw that.
and also a 3-step strategy for speaking more quickly.
Ah, the speaking side too. Good.
Yeah. And we're also going to be breaking down the elements that contribute to that natural flowing sound of spoken English stuff, like intonation, how sounds link together.
Like connected speech?
Exactly. Connected speech, natural expressions, contractions, stress patterns, fillers, reductions, all that good stuff.
Okay.
The material also touches on a 150-day listening challenge and a 150-day speaking challenge as sort of extra resources.
Got it. So here's our roadmap. First, we'll dissect those specific listening techniques.
Mm-hmm.
Then we'll analyze the strategies for speaking more quickly.
Right?
And finally, we'll break down those key elements that make spoken English sound, well, natural and easy.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, so let's get right into the listening side. The material you sent, specifically from something called 6k.pdf, it lays out this 4-step listening method. Step 1 is initial exposure. Let's unpack what that actually means.
Okay, so this initial step is pretty direct. It's basically just listening to a short clip of real English conversation,
Oh,
spoken at its normal, natural speed, and crucially, without any visual aids like subtitles.
right, no safety net.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The key insight here is really about acclimatizing your ear to the natural rhythm of English before you start focusing too hard on comprehension.
So just diving straight in, full speed.
Precisely. The purpose at this stage isn't really to grasp every single word. It's more about letting your ears get used to the speed, the overall rhythm,
Yeah.
forming a general auditory impression.
It's like walking into a noisy room, maybe. You let your ears adjust to the general soundscape before you try to focus on one conversation.
That's a really good analogy, yeah. The lesson actually uses an example conversation between a guy named David and a woman named Chantel from Montreal. So for this first step, you just listen to their exchange once at full speed.
And at this point, it's totally okay if you feel like you haven't understood much, right? It could feel pretty overwhelming.
Absolutely. It's very common to feel like native speakers are talking incredibly fast at this stage.
Mm.
But the critical thing to remember is the goal isn't detailed comprehension just yet. It's purely about familiarization.
Okay, I can see how that helps get your ears tuned in. But wouldn't it be a bit discouraging listening and feeling like you haven't grasped anything? What's the benefit of that initial confusion?
That's a really good question. And yeah, it might feel discouraging initially, but that first exposure serves a vital purpose. Think of it like taking your temperature, as the lesson suggests.
Okay, a baseline.
Exactly. You need that baseline reading to understand where you're starting before you can work on improving. It gives you a raw sense of the challenge, highlights the gap you're aiming to bridge.
That's a really good way to look at it. Okay, so no need to get disheartened if you feel lost during this first listen. It's just part of getting your bearings. Okay, so after that initial plunge, what comes next? Step 2.
Step 2 is called slowing down.
Okay, thank goodness. So now we get to actually start making sense of it, hopefully. This sounds more encouraging.
Exactly. For this second step, you listen to the exact same conversation you heard in step 1.
The David and Chantel one.
Right, the same one. But this time it's been specifically re-recorded to be significantly slower.
Ah, okay.
The key benefit here is just giving your brain that extra processing time it needs to catch individual sounds and words.
Got it. So same content, just at a more manageable pace, like watching a video tutorial at half speed to really see what they're doing.
That's a perfect comparison.
Yeah.
The idea is, by reducing the speed, you give your brain the breathing room it needs to decode the sounds and assemble them into words you recognize.
That makes total sense. When you're learning, it often feels like all the words just blur together, right?
Precisely. And learners are often really surprised. They find that when they listen to the slowed-down version, they actually understand way more than they thought.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it can be quite revealing. It shows you the understanding that was kind of hidden by the speed.
It's like when you finally figure out the lyrics to a song you've heard loads of times but could never quite make out at full speed. Suddenly, words just pop out.
Exactly like that. And this increased understanding, it can be incredibly motivating.
Yeah, a real confidence booster.
Absolutely. It gives you tangible evidence that you can comprehend more than you realized when faced with a normal pace. Step 2 is really about building that foundational understanding by giving your brain the time it needs.
Okay, so we've had the full speed listen to get accustomed, then the slowed down version to start picking out words. What's step 3 in this active listening approach?
Step 3 is active listening and transcription. The core idea here is that by actively trying to write down what you hear, you force yourself to engage really deeply with the sounds and details.
Oh, okay. So now we're getting serious. Pens and paper out, right?
That's the spirit. For this step, you listen to the fast natural speed version again.
Back to the fast one.
But this time, your task is to try and write down every single word you hear.
Wow. Okay. That sounds like a real workout for the ears and the brain.
It certainly can be demanding, yeah. But it's also exceptionally effective for training your auditory processing. It compels you to pay incredibly close attention to individual sounds, the fine details. You can't just passively listen.
Right. You have to actively decode and record it. I can see how that would really sharpen your listening, force you to differentiate between similar sounds.
Indeed. And the lesson emphasizes that this isn't just about listening. It also actively helps improve your speaking skills.
Interesting. How does writing down what you hear help your speaking? That's not immediately obvious.
Well, when you're intensely focused on transcribing, you're simultaneously thinking about how those words are pronounced, kind of mentally sounding them out.
Yeah.
Right? And the way they're structured in the sentence. It's a form of active mental engagement with the language. Even though you're not physically speaking, you're essentially rehearsing the articulation in your head.
So it's like internal practice for speaking while you're focused on listening and writing. That's clever.
Precisely. Plus, once you compare your transcription to the actual transcript, you get incredibly valuable insights into where you made errors.
Ah, the feedback loop.
Exactly. It gives you highly personalized feedback, not just on listening accuracy, but also nuances of your own pronunciation, maybe even your grammar understanding. The bits you struggle to transcribe often highlight areas where your own pronunciation or understanding of structures might need some work.
It's like getting a tailored report card on your listening and related speaking skills. Very useful.
Exactly. It's a multifaceted exercise with benefits beyond just hearing the sounds.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these steps connect and build on each other. They're all hitting fast English from different angles. So what's the final piece, step 4?
The final step is comparison and analysis. The key insight here is that by comparing your understanding or your transcription with the correct version, you pinpoint exactly what you missed and, crucially, why you missed it.
Okay, so now we finally get to see how well we did and figure out the specific tricky spots.
Exactly. In this step, you take your transcription from step 3.
Or just what you think you heard if you didn't write it all down.
Right, or just your general understanding, and you compare it directly to the official accurate transcript of the dialogue.
So, time to check the answers.
Yes. And this is where a lot of those aha moments tend to happen.
Because you can clearly see what you got right, what you missed, and maybe figure out why.
Exactly. And by comparing, you can actively analyze why you missed certain parts. Was it an unfamiliar vocabulary word? Or maybe you misheard a sound because of how it was pronounced in fast speech or a reduction. This focused analysis helps you pinpoint specific areas to work on later.
And I bet there are also moments where you realize you actually understood more than you thought, even if the transcription wasn't perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. And it can be very encouraging. You see your progress, even if it didn't feel perfect in real time. It reinforces that the effort is paying off.
Yeah, that's always a nice feeling that, oh, I actually got more of that than I realized. Provides that positive reinforcement to keep going.
It gives a real confidence boost and powerfully reinforces that you are making tangible progress.
So This whole four-step method is really designed to train both your ear and your brain to process fast English through active engagement at each stage.
Precisely. It's not passive hearing. It's actively, consciously engaging in a structured way that builds comprehension progressively.
And it sounds like it would be useful for learners at different levels, right? Beginners getting a foothold, more advanced speakers refining their skills.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you already understand English pretty well, there's always room to refine your listening, especially with the challenges of speed and natural conversational flow.
Absolutely. And the lesson also makes a really crucial point that sort of underlies all of this: vocabulary. It emphasizes that having a good vocabulary base is absolutely essential no matter how good your listening techniques are.
That's totally right. Even with great listening skills, if you hit words you just don't know, comprehension hits a wall, right? Your ear might catch the sounds, but your brain can't assign meaning.
You can't understand what you don't have the words for. Simple as that.
Exactly. And to really illustrate this connection between listening and vocabulary, the lesson highlights 3 specific phrases from that David and Chantel conversation. By looking at these, we can see how knowing the meaning and pronunciation of common phrases really impacts understanding.
Okay, let's dive into these phrases. What insights do they offer?
The first one is to not matter. Now, the words themselves are basic, right? But the lesson points out that in fast American English, it can often sound more like tona matter.
Ah, yeah, tona matter. That T sound in not can kind of soften or blend.
Right. If you're expecting a clear separation to not matter, that blended sound might throw you off initially.
Mm-hmm.
In the context of the conversation, David says the fact he didn't speak French and Chantel didn't speak English didn't matter. So here, to not matter just means it wasn't important.
Right, it didn't prevent communication.
Right.
A non-issue.
Exactly. The lesson gives another example. It doesn't matter if you make mistakes, just keep practicing. Reinforces that idea of something being inconsequential, not a reason to stop.
That's a good example. So that highlights pronunciation variation and clarifies the meaning. What's the next key phrase?
The next one is the phrasal verb to come down. In the chat, David says Chantel and her friend had come down from Montreal to Florida. Now, phrasal verbs, can be tricky.
Right. To come down could mean a few things. Something falling, becoming less intense.
Precisely. But in this specific context, geographical travel, to come down, means to travel south. Makes sense, right? Montreal is way north of Florida.
Right. Definitely north to south travel.
The lesson gives another example. My cousins are coming down from New York for the holidays. Again, it implies the speaker is south of New York, and the cousins are traveling south to visit.
Got it. So, to come down, specifically for traveling south, recognizing context-dependent meanings of phrasal verbs is crucial. Okay, what's the last one?
The final one is another very common phrasal verb, to end up. This one, like you said, can have several nuances.
Oh yeah, to end up. Can imply a final state, sometimes with that element of surprise, maybe?
Exactly. The lesson focuses on its meaning of arriving at a situation or result that wasn't initially planned or expected. There's often that sense of an unplanned outcome, a bit of surprise in how things ended up.
Like a plot twist in a story.
Exactly. In the conversation, David mentioned Chantel, who he just met on the beach, ended up living with him for 7 months. Definitely not the plan when they first met.
Wow, yeah, that's definitely an unplanned and pretty significant outcome.
The lesson gives another example. We got lost, but we ended up finding a cute little cafe. Again, that element of an unplanned result, unexpectedly living together, unexpectedly finding a cafe.
Right, a deviation from the original plan leading to something new, often surprising. So these 3 phrases really show how vital vocabulary is, especially phrasal verbs, for grasping the full meaning, even if you hear the words clearly.
Absolutely. If you don't know the specific meaning and context, you're stuck. So quick recap on listening. We've gone through this 4-step method: initial exposure, slowing down, active listening transcription, and comparison analysis. And we've stressed how crucial vocabulary is, using those 3 phrases as examples.
Right. Now, the lesson material also introduces something called the 150-day listening challenge. Sounds like quite a commitment. What's the idea there?
It is, yeah. It's a structured program designed to boost listening skills through consistent daily practice. Participants commit to just 15 minutes a day.
Okay, 15 minutes isn't too bad.
Right. Listening to short, real English conversations for 150 days straight. The principle is that consistent, focused exposure over time leads to big improvements.
Like a daily mini immersion, just focused on listening.
Exactly. And a key feature is the variety. Over 50 different native speakers are included.
Oh, that's good. Lots of different accents.
Yeah, so you get exposed to a wide range of accents and speaking styles right from the start. Helps train the ear for real-world English.
Which is so important because English sounds so different depending on where someone's from.
Precisely. In the real world, you hit all sorts of accents. Proactively training your ear for that variety is crucial for fluency.
So what are the supposed benefits if someone sticks with this 150-day challenge?
Well, the creators suggest that after 150 days, participants should find it noticeably easier to understand English media movies, podcasts, and also everyday conversations. The goal is making understanding feel less like a struggle, more second nature.
That's a pretty big claim, like a listening fitness program.
It is. The material also mentioned a special offer was available for it. These things often have promotions.
Oh, a deal to get people to sign up.
Yeah. Apparently, it included a discounted price and lifetime access to the materials. Lifetime access is always a good perk.
Not bad. Lifetime access is really valuable.
And it mentioned the challenge started March 21st. So hopefully some listeners interested in this kind of structured practice might have caught that offer if it fit their goals.
Yeah, if the timing worked out and the offer was still live, these deals usually have end dates.
Definitely. But, even if that specific offer has passed, the underlying principle consistently incorporating regular, focused listening practice that remains incredibly valuable, regardless of any specific program or deal. Consistency is key.
Absolutely. We say it all the time. Consistency is fundamental for language progress. Short, regular sessions add up.
Now, before we switch gears, I just wanted to make sure listeners know about the free PDF worksheet mentioned in the lesson material. Free resources are always great.
Oh, that sounds like a helpful bonus. What's in the worksheet?
It's pretty comprehensive, actually.
Yeah.
It summarizes the tips for the 4-step method we discussed.
Okay.
It includes a practice worksheet to help you apply the method. And, maybe most useful, it has the full transcript of that David and Chantel conversation.
Oh, perfect for that comparison step.
Exactly. Having the transcript is invaluable for analysis.
So it's a really practical, hands-on resource to get started immediately. How do people get it?
Pretty straightforward. You just click the link. We'll put it in the show notes for this deep dive. And enter your name and email. Standard stuff.
Easy enough.
And there's an extra benefit. By signing up for this worksheet, you apparently get added to their email list, which sends out weekly free PDF worksheets with more tips and exercises.
Oh, wow. So it's ongoing.
Seems like it. So not just a one-off, but a continuing source of learning materials.
Sounds like a really valuable tool and a great way to keep learning. Definitely something for our listeners to check out.
Indeed. So we've covered a lot on understanding fast English, the 4 steps, the importance of vocabulary. The main takeaway really is that improving your comprehension is achievable. It takes the right methods and consistent effort. It doesn't have to be this insurmountable wall.
Exactly. It doesn't have to feel impossible. With the right approach, you can definitely start breaking it down.
So maybe a final thought on listening? I'd encourage you to take a moment, reflect on times you found it really challenging to understand fast English. A movie, a podcast,
A chat. We've all been there, right? Feeling like you're missing crucial bits.
and really think about how these specific techniques, breaking it down into these 4 active steps, might have changed that experience. Would active engagement, slowing down, transcribing, analyzing, would that have helped you grasp more, felt more confident?
And it makes you think how this kind of structured step-by-step approach, this deliberate way of engaging, could that apply to processing other complex information too, not just language? It's like a framework.
That's a very insightful point.
Yeah.
This framework, initial exposure, gradual engagement, active processing, systematic analysis, it could indeed be valuable in various learning situations where you need to break down complexity or master skills. And that's really what we aim for here, giving you adaptable strategies you can apply more broadly.
Absolutely. Practical strategies you can start using, right away to better understand those fast conversations. Okay, let's switch gears a bit now. We spent a lot of time on understanding fast English, but what about the other side? Speaking faster ourselves, and maybe more importantly, speaking confidently in response.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that frustrating thing happen where you can follow along okay when someone else is talking, even pretty fast, but then when it's your turn to jump in quickly, your brain just hits a wall?
Oh, absolutely. That feeling of understanding but then freezing up when you need to reply, that's incredibly common for language learners. It's like your brain is still translating or constructing while the conversation has already moved on. That mental lag.
Exactly. You're stuck in slow motion trying to form thoughts while everyone else is in fast forward. I think a lot of people learning English can relate. You might know the vocabulary, the grammar, but that quick back and forth feels like a different, much harder challenge.
Precisely. You're still processing the question, maybe translating, then constructing your answer. When you're expected to respond almost instantly to keep the flow, that delay feels huge in the moment.
And that's actually the specific area we're going to focus on next. We're drawing on more practical ideas from that same resource, the Mastering Fast English Conversations material, but this time focusing on their recommended 3-step strategy designed to help learners speak more quickly and confidently in those fast exchanges, bridging that gap between understanding and responding fluently.
Yeah, this speaking strategy is designed to help you not just understand fast English, but to train your brain to actually think faster in English. The goal is to formulate and deliver responses more readily without that frustrating hesitation that stops the conversation. Developing mental agility in English.
I love that focus. That's so often the bottleneck, isn't it? Understanding improves, but speaking speed and confidence lag behind. It can be really discouraging.
Exactly. And for those who listen to our discussion on the 4-step listening method from the same resource, this shift to the active skill of speaking provides a really well-rounded approach, tackling both input and output.
Awesome. So let's get to it. What are these practical techniques we can start using to speak faster and more confidently? We're ready for these steps.
What's great about this strategy is its practicality. It's not about rote memorizing tons of vocabulary or getting lost in complex grammar rules.
Good.
Instead, it's a structured set of straightforward, effective practice techniques you can realistically integrate into your routine no matter how busy you are. It's about consistent application of targeted methods.
Yeah, we're always looking for those actionable steps that give results without being overwhelming or needing huge time commitments. Efficiency is key.
Exactly. The goal here is to see tangible improvements in speaking speed and fluency relatively quickly without adding a huge burden to your day. Smart practice for effective outcomes.
Because we know our listeners want efficient, effective methods that respect their time but still deliver progress, right? We're all busy.
Absolutely. And to support practice, the resource also provides that helpful supplementary PDF worksheet again.
Ah, the same one.
Well, a similar one focused on speaking this time, I believe. It offers clear explanations and additional practical exercises for these 3 speaking steps.
Awesome. And listeners can find info on accessing these supplementary materials like the PDF in the show notes or by subscribing, right? We always try to provide those extras.
That's correct. We'll make sure the link is readily available.
Cool. Okay, let's not keep people waiting. Let's dive into this 3-step speaking strategy. Step number 1.
Step number 1 is a technique called shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay, sounds a bit mysterious, like something from spy movies. Tell us what shadowing means for language learning and speaking faster.
It might sound a bit strange, yeah, but shadowing is actually a remarkably powerful technique for improving spoken English fluency, pronunciation, rhythm. Essentially, it's a specific kind of active listening where you try to repeat what you hear almost simultaneously with the original speaker.
Oh, okay.
Imagine your voice acting like a close echo or a shadow, following the original audio source in real time.
I like that your voice has a shadow. So you're not waiting for them to finish. You're trying to keep pace, repeating as they speak.
Precisely. And what makes shadowing so effective is it engages multiple aspects of language production at once. Obviously, it's great for pronunciation, getting comfortable with English sounds.
Yeah, physically trying to replicate the sounds, the articulation, active imitation.
But it goes beyond just sounds. It also helps you internalize the natural rhythm, the stress patterns, the intonation of English. Those things are absolutely crucial for sounding fluent and natural. You absorb the music of the language.
It's about getting a feel for the melody and cadence, not just the individual words.
Exactly. And the key aspect is, because your focus is on imitating, you don't have to worry about generating your own words at the same time.
Right, less cognitive load.
Yeah. It frees up your brain to dedicate more attention to those subtleties, pronunciation, rhythm, intonation, often without you even consciously realizing you're learning them. It's kind of implicit learning.
Almost like your ears and mouth are learning together, building that connection between hearing and speaking more automatically. Interesting. Okay, how can we try this? How do we start shadowing?
Let's actually do a very quick shadowing exercise right now, just to give you, the listener, a taste. Imagine you hear this simple sentence. The cat sat on the mat and purred contentedly.
Okay.
I want you to try and repeat that right after I say it, matching my rhythm and pronunciation as best you can. Ready? The cat sat on the mat and purred contentedly.
Okay, everyone listening, as soon as you hear it, try repeating it out loud. Match the rhythm.
Short pause. Awesome. Even with that short example, you can probably start to feel that connection between hearing and saying.
Yeah.
And the more you practice shadowing with different English audio, different speakers, accents, content types, the better you'll get at producing sounds naturally and speaking more fluently without having to consciously think about every single syllable. It becomes more automatic.
Makes sense. Training your vocal muscles and auditory system to work together better. Okay, that's step 1. Shadowing for pronunciation, rhythm, fluency. Let's move to step 2. What's next?
Step number 2 is a technique called chunking.
Chunking. Okay, that term sounds familiar from learning theory. What does it mean for speaking English faster?
Chunking is about taking longer sentences and consciously breaking them down into smaller, more manageable, and more natural-sounding segments. Instead of seeing a long sentence and feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, like how am I going to say all that?
Right. You learn to identify and focus on these smaller, natural groups of words, these chunks, one segment at a time.
So instead of trying to process and produce this massive string of individual words, you deal with smaller, digestible units.
Exactly. The underlying principle is that native speakers don't typically think or process language word by individual word when speaking. We tend to think and communicate in these natural frequent groupings of words that go together, lexical chunks or collocations.
Like learning to speak in prefabricated phrases or common combinations that just naturally occur.
Precisely. Think of them like pre-assembled Lego bricks that fit together smoothly. We use these combos all the time. Learning to recognize and use these chunks rather than translating word for word massively impacts how fluent and natural you sound. You speak more intuitively, using established patterns.
So learning to speak using these ready-made building blocks native speakers use instinctively sounds efficient. Let's try a quick chunking exercise to illustrate.
Okay, imagine the sentences. Even though the traffic was absolutely terrible this morning, I still managed to arrive at the office on time for the important meeting.
Whoa, okay, that's pretty long and complex. Could definitely feel daunting to say quickly.
It could, but we can make it manageable by breaking it into natural chunks. First, repeat after me. Even though the traffic was absolutely terrible this morning,
Short pause.
could.
Yeah.
Now, the second part. I still managed to arrive at the office on time.
Short pause.
And finally, the last chunk for the important meeting.
Short pause. See how breaking it down into those 3 smaller, more coherent parts makes it feel less daunting and easier to say with a natural flow.
Definitely. Much more manageable for your brain and mouth. Let's try one more example.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay, sentence. If you happen to have any further questions or require additional clarification, please don't hesitate to reach out to me by email at your earliest convenience.
Okay, another great example of a longer sentence that could feel tricky.
Repeat after me, first chunk. If you happen to have any further questions or require additional clarification.
Short pause. And the second chunk. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Short pause. And the final segment, by email at your earliest convenience. Short pause. Awesome. By consistently practicing speaking in these natural chunks, you'll gradually find your speech becomes more fluent, develops a more natural rhythm, and feels less like a forced translation.
Yeah, it's like training your mouth and brain to work together more efficiently using those familiar patterns native speakers use, leading to smoother, more confident delivery. Okay, so we've covered shadowing for pronunciation rhythm and chunking for managing long sentences and sounding natural. What's the third and final step in this speaking strategy?
Step number 3 is called response drills.
Response drills. Okay, that sounds like it's focused on developing quick reactions in conversations.
Exactly. This practical technique is designed to help you practice answering common questions quickly, confidently, and without significant pauses or hesitation. It's about building speed and automaticity in your responses to familiar prompts.
So, training your brain to rapidly access and articulate appropriate answers more spontaneously with less conscious effort. Building mental and verbal agility.
Precisely. Think of it like a musician practicing scales and arpeggios repeatedly until those patterns become second nature. Response drills aim for that same automaticity and muscle memory in your spoken English.
Makes perfect sense, building that ingrained, reflexive ability to respond. So when doing these drills, is the goal perfect grammar every time?
That's a really important point. When you're doing response drills, perfection in grammar isn't the primary goal at this stage. Accuracy is important overall, sure, but the main focus here is increasing speaking speed and achieving a more natural flow, even if it means making occasional minor errors.
Right.
The emphasis is on reducing hesitation and building confidence in expressing thoughts quickly.
Not aiming for flawless grammar, but prioritizing speed, naturalness, and reducing those awkward silences.
Exactly. In real conversations, it's often more effective to make a minor grammatical slip and maintain the flow than to freeze up or pause for ages trying to construct a perfect sentence. That hesitation can really disrupt communication.
That's so true. The hesitation can feel more disruptive than a small grammar mistake.
Okay, so how do we do these response drills? Can you give some examples of common questions to practice?
Absolutely. Imagine someone asks you, so what's a hobby you enjoy doing in your free time?
Okay, common small talk question.
The key here is to take just a brief moment to think of an answer and then say it out loud as quickly and naturally as you can without overthinking. Focus on speed and ease.
Short pause simulation. Cool. Here's another common one. What's the weather usually like where you live? Again, brief thought, then say it aloud, focusing on smooth, fast delivery.
Short pause simulation.
Nice.
By consistently practicing answering these types of Freeport questions quickly and repeatedly, you'll gradually notice you hesitate less in real conversations. The whole process of speaking starts feeling smoother, more comfortable, more natural, building that quick recall.
Yeah, you're essentially pre-arming your brain with ready responses for common prompts, rehearsing for everyday interactions. Okay, let's do a super quick recap of this three-step speaking strategy. Okay, first, shadowing fantastic for improving pronunciation, intonation, fluency by immediately repeating what you hear, being that real-time echo.
Right, that immediate auditory echo, absorbing sounds and rhythms.
Then chunking, breaking down long sentences into smaller, natural phrases and word groups native speakers use. Helps you sound more fluent and authentic.
Yeah, speaking in those digestible, authentic groupings, not struggling with long strings of words.
And finally, response drills, training your brain to quickly and confidently answer common questions with less hesitation, leading to more natural conversational flow, building that rapid response capability.
Exactly, developing that quick, confident give and take of natural conversation.
And, as we've emphasized, consistent practice of all three is crucial. Even just a few focused minutes each day implementing these strategies will make a noticeable difference in your fluency and confidence over time. And don't forget that free PDF worksheet we mentioned, extra exercises to support your practice of these speaking steps.
Right, having those extra practice materials is incredibly helpful for reinforcing this. Now, the resource also mentioned a 150-day speaking challenge. Sounds pretty intensive. What did that involve?
It did sound comprehensive, yeah. Focused on enhancing speaking skills over a sustained period. It apparently included daily training based on realistic conversations.
Okay.
Practice activities targeting different aspects like pronunciation, intonation, vocabulary use, confidence. And a key component seemed to be personalized feedback from native English teachers.
Oh, personalized feedback from native speakers, that would be exceptionally valuable for targeted improvement.
It certainly would. The usual price was listed as $500, but there was a limited time offer for $199, which also included lifetime access to the materials.
That's a huge discount, and lifetime access adds serious value. I wonder if that offer is still available.
The material said the deadline was March 21st, so it's quite likely it's passed now. These big discounts usually have specific end dates.
Ah, okay. So, while that offer might be gone, the core techniques in it discussed, shadowing, chunking, response drills, those are practical methods listeners can start using immediately regardless of that specific challenge, right? They're universally helpful.
Exactly. And don't forget that free worksheet is still available as a great starting point for practicing these techniques.
Well, thank you so much for breaking down those really practical speaking strategies. I genuinely think our listeners will find these incredibly helpful for boosting confidence and speed in English conversations.
Yeah, we really hope you, our listeners, will start experimenting with these three steps. Even just setting aside a few focused minutes daily for shadowing, chunking, response drills can lead to significant improvements in fluency and confidence.
And remember, learning a language is a journey, right? It takes time and consistent effort. Just keep practicing, try out strategies like these, and you will see amazing results over time. Now, we've talked a lot about understanding and speaking faster English, but what about another crucial aspect, sounding more natural when we speak? That's a big goal for many learners.
It is indeed a very common goal, moving beyond just being understood to actually sounding more like a native speaker. And there's tons of advice out there on this.
Right.
But the material you provided does a pretty good job of distilling it down to the most essential, impactful elements learners can focus on.
Exactly. We're always looking for those key ingredients, the things that really contribute to that authentic, effortless flow. And based on the resource, it seems there are three main areas to focus on for sounding more natural.
Okay, I'm eager to hear these magic 3 keys. What's the first crucial element?
First up is intonation. You've really got to pay attention to the natural music of your speech in English.
Intonation.
Yeah.
I think most learners know it involves not speaking in a flat monotone. There needs to be some variation.
Right, but it's definitely more nuanced than just having some variation. Maybe we can dig a bit deeper into what intonation really is and why it's so vital for sounding natural.
Absolutely. Intonation is fundamentally the rise and fall of your voice as you speak, how your pitch changes throughout a sentence or phrase. And it's incredibly important in English. It goes way beyond just pronouncing words correctly. It's the melody you create.
So more than just getting the sounds right, it's the overall musicality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In English, how you say something, the pattern of rise and fall, can completely change the meaning or convey different emotions and attitudes. Take a simple sentence like, I didn't know you were coming.
I didn't know you were coming. Okay, yeah, I could say that in a different situation.
Now, if you say that totally flat, monotone, it might sound robotic, maybe indifferent, even annoyed.
Right.
But now, try saying it with a slight emphasis and a natural lift in pitch on no and coming. I didn't know you were
I
coming.
didn't know you were coming.
Yeah, I immediately hear the difference. It sounds much more like genuine surprise, maybe a little shock. The intonation shifts the feeling entirely. Precisely. It sounds more natural, more expressive, conveys a clear emotional context. And it's not just for statements. Think about questions. Are you serious? You say that monotone, it almost sounds like you're not really asking, or maybe you're being sarcastic. But put a slight upward inflection at the end. Are you serious?
Are you serious? Yeah, now it clearly sounds like a real question, seeking confirmation or expressing disbelief. That rising intonation is the signal.
So paying conscious attention to these ups and downs, these pitch variations, makes a profound difference in how your English is perceived. It contributes hugely to sounding natural and being understood with the intended nuance.
Absolutely. And it sounds like the first step is just becoming more aware of intonation patterns in natural speech.
Exactly. Make a conscious effort to listen attentively to how native speakers talk. Notice how their voices moves, the rises and falls. And then start practicing incorporating that variation into your own speech. It might feel a bit weird at first, but it becomes more intuitive with practice.
Okay, so intonation, the music of speech. What's the second key element for sounding more natural?
The next crucial element is linking, how we naturally link sounds together when we speak.
Linking, right. So not pronouncing each word separately with pauses in between.
Exactly. When we speak fluently, we don't articulate each word as a distinct, separate unit with gaps. The sounds at the end of one word often blend smoothly with the sounds at the beginning of the next. They link up.
Ah, so that's often why native speakers can sound so fast. It's not just word speed, but how they flow together.
Precisely. It's often not about speaking faster per se, but achieving this smooth, continuous, connected flow. Consider a common question. What are you doing?
What are you doing? Yeah, you could say each word distinctly, but it might sound a bit formal or stilted in casual chat.
Exactly. In typical casual conversation, most native speakers would naturally say something more like, what are you doing? The word boundaries become much less distinct.
What are you doing? Yeah, for sure. You can hear how the T and what, the A and R and the Y and U all kind of blend together.
Notice how the T in what often blends with the A and R, sometimes sounding like a soft D, and U very often gets shortened to, yeah, so what are you doing? Smoothly becomes, what are you doing? Almost like one new informal word.
It really does, in a way. Like spoken language has its own pronunciation rules, prioritizing flow and efficiency.
Indeed. It's a natural part of how English evolves in speech, often prioritizing ease of articulation and efficiency. Another common example is, I don't know.
I don't know. 3 distinct words on paper.
But we often hear it as, I don't know, right? The don't and know merge, with the T and don't often dropped or softened to connect to know.
I don't know. Yeah, definitely.
So becoming aware of this linking is really important for both understanding native speakers and making your own speech sound more natural and less hesitant.
Absolutely. Listen for link sounds when hearing natives and try using them yourself.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to experiment. It might feel awkward at first, but with practice, it'll start feeling more comfortable and become more automatic. Practice makes perfect here. It really does. All right, ready for the third key element for sounding natural. What's the final piece?
Hit me with it. This third crucial element is using natural expressions.
Okay, what exactly is a natural expression here? What are we talking about?
Well, natural expressions are mainly those phrases and idioms that native speakers commonly use in everyday conversations. These might not always make literal sense if you just look at the individual words. Their meaning is often idiomatic or cultural.
Oh yeah, like idioms or everyday sayings that mean more than the sum of their parts.
Exactly. Idioms are a prime example. Incorporating them appropriately adds color and nuance, making you sound much more fluent and native-like.
Can you give a few more examples of these common natural expressions learners should try to use?
Absolutely. One that's incredibly common and versatile is "it's up to you." You hear it all the time.
It's up to you. Yeah, definitely hear that a lot.
It basically means you have the choice or you decide. A concise, natural way to give someone the decision. Another really useful one is "no worries."
No worries. Yeah, very common too. You can use no worries as a casual, friendly alternative to it's okay or don't worry about it. Very prevalent in everyday interactions.
Right, so it's not just about mastering grammar and vocabulary. It's also about learning and using these common idiomatic phrases that real people use daily to sound authentic.
Exactly. Capturing the genuine essence and informal flavor of everyday spoken English beyond the textbook.
So what's the best way for learners to get better at recognizing and using these natural expressions?
The most effective way is to actively immerse yourself in authentic English as much as possible. Listen to native speakers in various contexts, watch movies, TV shows, listen to podcasts you like, engage with online videos. Pay close attention to the phrases they use, especially in casual settings.
So active listening focused on picking up these common phrases.
Exactly. Keep a notebook or a digital note handy. Jot down phrases that sound interesting, frequent, or useful. Then, make a conscious effort to start incorporating them into your own speech. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's part of learning. Just try them out.
Okay, quick recap. 3 keys to sounding more natural are intonation, the music, linking, connecting sounds, and natural expressions, everyday idioms phrases.
Perfect summary. These 3 work together to create that natural, effortless, conversational flow of native-like speech.
So what's the most important takeaway for listeners regarding these 3 keys?
The most important thing is to start consciously paying attention to these details in your own speech. Listen to yourself. Are you using intonation effectively? Linking sounds smoothly, incorporating natural expressions. And most importantly, practice these often overlooked aspects regularly. Even small, focused practice sessions yield big improvements over time.
Couldn't agree more. The more you practice and pay attention, the more natural it becomes and the more native-like you'll sound. And, there's a cool aspect to this, I think. It's not just sounding good to others, it's developing a deeper internal understanding of the subtle cues in natural spoken English.
Absolutely. It's connecting with the language on a deeper, more intuitive level, understanding its rhythm, flow, expressiveness. When you achieve that, you unlock a richer dimension of communication.
It's like learning to dance with the language, not just marching to grammar rules.
Precisely. And when you can dance with it, you can express yourself more naturally, engagingly, and satisfyingly. You might even surprise yourself how much you enjoy developing that flow. Now, we've discussed these broader aspects, but our source material also provides a kind of handy cheat sheet specific elements to focus on to really elevate your spoken English and sound more native-like. Targeted techniques for refinement.
Ooh, a cheat sheet. I like the sound of that. Something concrete and actionable. What's on this cheat sheet?
Exactly. Think of it as targeted tools to level up your speaking, making your English sound more natural, fluent, confident, closer to how a native speaker might naturally talk.
Sounds fantastic and practical. What are the key elements?
The 3 main high-impact elements from this cheat sheet we'll focus on are using contractions naturally, mastering stress patterns within sentences, and the appropriate use of fillers.
Contractions, stress patterns, and fillers. Yeah, I can definitely see how mastering those seemingly small details makes a huge difference in sounding natural.
Huge difference, absolutely. And as mentioned, we have that free PDF worksheet available, packed with examples and practice exercises for these 3 elements. Be sure to download it, links in the description. Just enter your email, we'll send it straight over.
Awesome. Okay, let's dive into the first element on the cheat sheet. Contractions.
Yes, contractions. Now, you probably already know and use basic ones like don't for do not, right? Those are usually taught early.
Yeah, those fundamentals come up pretty early on.
But the key isn't just knowing them, it's using them consistently and naturally in your spoken English. Doing so really elevates fluency and makes you sound less formal, more conversational.
Definitely makes you sound less like you're reading a textbook, more like a relaxed chat.
Exactly. So why do native speakers use them so much? Contractions are basically shortened, combined forms of words phrases we use all the time. They're fundamental to natural speech, contributing to that fluid sound, like saying it's instead of it is.
Or we've instead of we have.
Right. And as native speakers, we use them almost instinctively. We don't usually consciously decide. It's just ingrained, automatic. All right, let's try a quick practice example.
Sounds good. Ready?
Imagine saying, I am going to the store. Perfectly correct, understandable. But in most casual chats, it sounds a little formal, maybe slightly stiff.
It definitely has a more formal, deliberate feel than how we usually talk.
So what's the much more natural way a native speaker would say that, using a contraction?
You'd almost certainly say, I'm going to the store.
Exactly. I'm going to the store. Now, listeners, try saying both versions aloud if you can. First, I am going to the store. Now, I'm going to the store. Can you hear that difference in flow and naturalness?
Definitely smoother and more conversational with I'm... Okay, let's try one more quick one.
Good one. Take. He will be there soon. How would we naturally shorten that with a contraction?
We'd almost always say, he'll be there soon. Just rolls off the tongue easier.
Okay, listen carefully again, everyone. Then try saying both aloud. First, he will be there soon. Now, he'll be there soon. Can you clearly hear the difference and feel how much more natural he'll sounds?
Perfect. I think listeners are getting the hang of contractions. Let's move to the next crucial element on the cheat sheet.
Let's turn to the often underestimated but incredibly important aspect of stress patterns in English sentences.
Woo, this is key, and like you said, often overlooked or not consciously focused on by learners.
Absolutely crucial. Stress patterns are about naturally emphasizing specific words in a sentence to highlight their importance and convey the intended meaning. It's not just pronouncing each word correctly, it's which words you give more prominence to. This guides the listener.
Got it. So the rhythm and strategic emphasis within a sentence that helps convey the precise message adds meaning beyond just the words.
Exactly. Let's use a really clear example. Consider the simple sentence. I didn't say she took my pen. Now listen very carefully how the meaning shifts dramatically, depending only on which word gets the primary stress.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's hear the shifts.
First, stress on I. I didn't say she took my pen. This implies maybe someone else said it, but it wasn't you. Focuses on who said it.
Okay, stressing I focuses on the speaker not being the one.
Now shift stress to didn't. I didn't say she took my pen. This becomes a direct denial. You're strongly emphasizing you absolutely did not say that.
Stressing didn't is emphatically denying saying those words.
Precisely. Clear denial. Okay, now stress on took. I didn't say she took my pen. Listen to the implication here.
So now by stressing took, you suggest maybe she did something else with the pen, but you didn't use the word took? Maybe she borrowed it, found it?
Exactly. You're not denying something happened with the pen involving her. You're just being precise about the verb you used, or didn't use.
But you didn't say she took it. Your statement was different.
Precisely. So you see how a subtle shift in emphasis on one word dramatically alters the meaning and implication. It's incredibly powerful and often overlooked.
It really highlights how nuanced spoken English is and that effective communication is way more than just choosing the right words. And I think it's something learners might not consciously focus on, but as we heard, it's vital for sounding natural and being understood correctly.
Absolutely vital. I remember a student who consistently stressed the wrong syllable in comfortable. The sounds were right, but the misplaced stress made it sound just a little awkward, off to a native ear, even if understandable.
That's a great example of how, even within one word, stress patterns impact naturalness. Subtle, but makes a big difference.
Okay, let's try a brief practice. I'll say, I didn't say she took my pen. Listener, try repeating it, capturing that natural rise and fall of emphasis I use. Ready? I didn't say she took my pen.
I didn't say she took my pen. Okay, listener, now try saying it again, but experiment. Intentionally put the main emphasis on a different word each time I, then didn't, then say, etc. Notice how the meaning shifts each time.
Perfect. Actively engaging with how small emphasis shifts change the message. It's fundamental for sounding natural and being understood accurately. Okay, let's move to the third and final technique on our cheat sheet. using fillers naturally.
Ah, fillers. Everyone uses them, right? Even native speakers. Those little verbal pauses and connectors we use, often without thinking.
They might seem insignificant, just little words or sounds, but they play a surprisingly big role in the natural flow and ease of conversation.
Absolutely essential for that smooth conversational rhythm.
Exactly. So for those unfamiliar, what are fillers?
Well, fillers are essentially those little words and sounds we use to kind of, connect thoughts and give ourselves a moment to think about what to say next while speaking. Helps us sound less abrupt, more natural.
Precisely. They buy us thinking time without awkward silences and contribute to a more conversational, less formal, less robotic style. Common ones are, so simple words and sounds we use frequently, often unconsciously.
They become an unconscious but integral part of natural speech. So how do these fillers actually help in a real conversation? What's their purpose?
Okay, imagine someone asks you a question and you need a moment to think instead of a sudden, maybe uncomfortable silence.
Yeah, silence can feel awkward or confrontational.
You can use a filler to bridge that gap. It buys thinking time while signaling you're about to speak, smooths out the pauses.
Prevents that abrupt stop-start feeling.
Exactly. And using fillers can also subtly make you sound less assertive or demanding. Starting with, well, I think, sounds less abrupt than just launching into your opinion.
Right, not just firing off answers. Okay, let's take a simple sentence. I need more time to think about it. How can we make that sound more conversational with fillers?
You could naturally say something like, I need like a little more time to think about it. Or, well, I need to think about it a little bit more. And like in the first, or, well, in the second. Soften the directness, make it sound more everyday.
Yeah, they definitely take the edge off, create a more relaxed tone. Okay, listen carefully, everyone, and repeat after me, focusing on the natural filler placement. I need like a little more time to think about it.
I need like a little more time to think about it.
Perfect. Sounds more conversational, less robotic, right?
It does. Okay, quick recap of the cheat sheet. Contractions, using shortened forms. Stress patterns, emphasizing the right words. And fillers, connecting thoughts, buying time. As we've said, even these seemingly small details make a significant difference in sounding natural and fluent.
Absolutely. Paying attention to the subtle but powerful nuances of natural spoken language. Now, our source material also highlights a few other important aspects for a natural flow. One is how spoken English often blends words together.
Yes, connected speech. A fundamental characteristic of natural spoken English and a key difference from written or formally taught English.
I see. Can you give an example of how connected speech works? What does it sound like?
We'll take a common question. What do you want to do? Written, it's 5 separate words. But when native speakers say it naturally, conversationally, it often sounds more like, what I want to do.
What do you want to do? Hey, you're right. It's like the words melt and flow into each other, creating new blended sounds.
They really do. And this blending happens because it's simply more efficient, requires less effort to speak that way, a natural tendency to streamline pronunciation.
I get it. So another common example might be, did you eat?
Exactly. Did you eat? Say it slowly. Did you eat? Sounds a bit formal, right? Not quite natural. Spoken quickly, it's smoother, maybe like, did you eat? Where did you blend?
Did you eat? Yeah, that's definitely how it comes out casually. Let's try saying that together, everyone. Did she eat?
Did you eat? See how much smoother and more connected that sounds than saying each word separately. Rolls off the tongue easier.
Totally. So yeah, connected speech is definitely a key element for that natural flowing sound of native speakers.
Absolutely. And the source material also mentions reductions, which, as you pointed out, is closely related to connected speech. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it seems to be all about linguistic efficiency and ease of articulation in everyday speech.
Exactly. Spoken language often prioritizes getting meaning across quickly with minimal effort. So we naturally shorten common words and phrases. A very prevalent example, going to for future action often becomes gonna.
Oh yeah, gonna is incredibly common. Hear it all the time.
And similarly, want to almost universally becomes the snappier wanna, right? Pretty much everyone uses those.
Absolutely. Classic examples of common reductions. Okay, let's give listeners a chance to try this out.
Sounds good. Instead of saying the more formal, I'm going to call you later, try the more natural reduction. I'm going to call you later.
I'm going to call you later. Yeah, much smoother, more conversational.
Way smoother, much more typical. Now you try it at home, listener. Okay, one more quick example. Instead of asking, do you want to go?
Perfectly clear and correct.
Try asking with the reduced form you'd hear casually. Do you want to go?
do you want to go? Wow, it's like night and day in terms of naturalness, right?
Okay, so we've hit connected speech, reductions, and the material also revisits the fundamental importance of intonation for sounding natural.
Yes, intonation. As we discussed, foundational for a natural, expressive sound. The natural melody, the pitch rising and falling as you speak.
Oh, okay, those natural ups and downs.
Yeah.
So, like we talked about when asking a question.
Exactly. Your voice typically goes up at the end of a yes-no question. Have you consciously noticed that?
I think I've subconsciously picked it up, but it helps to have it explicitly pointed out.
It's a key way we signal sentence types and intent. So for yes-no questions, that upward inflection is common. Listen. Are you ready? Hear my voice rise on. Ready. Are you ready? Yeah, I hear that subtle lift. Now you try at home, everyone. Are you ready?
Are you ready? Perfect. Conversely, for declarative statements making an assertion, the opposite usually happens. Your voice tends to go down slightly at the end.
Oh, okay. Downward inflection on statements. Makes sense, too.
Precisely. Listen, I'm ready. Notice my voice gently falls on ready.
I'm ready. Yeah, I hear it going down a bit. Now you try at home. I'm ready.
I'm ready. Awesome. So same word, ready. But the change in intonation rising for the question, falling for the statement, signals a completely different utterance, different intention. That's the power of intonation.
Wow, I feel like I'm gaining a much deeper appreciation for these nuances today.
Me too. Okay, quick recap for listeners following along. 3 key aspects of natural sound we just discussed. Connected speech, blending words, reduction, shorting phrases, and intonation, melody pitch. Mastering these will make your spoken English sound so much more conversational, less robotic, more natural. Now we're smoothly transitioning into something I know many learners find tricky: navigating fast English conversations in real time. Yes, those rapid-fire exchanges can feel overwhelming, even intimidating. It can seem like everyone's speaking lightning fast, and it's easy to feel like you're constantly playing catch-up, missing crucial info.
Exactly. And it's not just the speed of the words, it's grasping the nuances, the implications, fully understanding the message, not just catching isolated words as the conversation rushes past.
And that is precisely what we're focusing on in this final segment. We'll explore effective, practical strategies you can implement immediately to navigate those fast conversations with more confidence and improve your comprehension.
The material we've been using today is packed with practical techniques you can start using right away. We're going to break these down into 3 key areas.
First, we'll delve into harnessing the power of predicting what might come next in the conversation. Then we'll explore ways to boost your reaction speed in listening comprehension so you can keep up better. And finally, we'll discuss actively training your ears to truly understand fast-spoken English, even with unfamiliar accents or rapid patterns. Building listening stamina.
Okay, let's start with prediction. When you say predicting in a conversation, you don't just mean wild guessing, right? It's got to be more strategic.
Exactly. While there might be a small element of educated guessing sometimes, effective prediction in listening is actually a quite sophisticated cognitive skill. Fluent listeners use almost instinctively, often unconsciously. It's based on recognizing linguistic patterns, understanding context, and knowing how English communication typically unfolds. Informed anticipation.
So how does this predictive listening work in a real-time conversation? Can you give an example?
Think about it. In any conversation, there are patterns, common phrases, logical connections. Certain things naturally follow others. For simple illustration, if someone says, "It's really starting to rain heavily now, don't forget to take your raise," your brain almost automatically fills in the likely word, probably umbrella.
Right, an almost immediate connection based on common sense and typical language associations for that situation.
Precisely. It seems simple, but it shows how our brains constantly anticipate what's likely next, even if we're not conscious of it. It's grounded in context, words already spoken, and our general understanding of how English works. Definitely not random guessing, it's informed anticipation.
Makes perfect sense. The source material also gives another example. If you're feeling really tired and run down, you should probably try to get some. And naturally we think rest or sleep because those logically follow feeling tired.
Exactly. So how does prediction help with understanding fast English? Well, instead of just passively reacting to every word flying at you, you're mentally a step ahead. You're proactively constructing a kind of mental framework or outline for the conversation as it unfolds.
You're anticipating the likely direction, which makes it easier for your brain to process the incoming audio even when it's rapid.
Precisely. That proactive engagement, anticipating what might be said, makes it substantially easier for your brain to process, even at high speed. Your mind is primed for possibilities.
Okay, let's try another quick prediction exercise for listeners.
All right, here you go. Imagine someone says, I'm running really quite late for my appointment, so I absolutely need to quickly take a think it. What word or words do you intuitively think would most logically complete that sentence?
Okay, context. Late, need to get there quickly. My immediate thought is probably taxi, or maybe shortcut if they're walking. Those seem most logical.
Exactly. And again, it's driven by context. Running late implies urgency, suggesting faster transport or quicker route. Fascinating how our brains make those connections instantly. But isn't there a downside to relying heavily on prediction? What if we predict wrong? Could that hinder comprehension?
That's a very valid point. You don't want to become so fixated on what you think will be said that you miss what is actually said, right?
Yeah.
Over-reliance could lead to misunderstandings.
Absolutely. There's a risk of getting entrenched in your prediction and failing to process the actual words, misinterpreting the message. So, like many things, it's about balance, being proactively engaged, anticipating, but also being open and flexible enough to adjust based on what you actually hear. Be ready to revise predictions.
So, not a rigid expectation, but a flexible process. Anticipate possibilities. Listen attentively. Adapt and revise understanding as the conversation progresses.
Exactly. Continuous cycle.
Yeah.
Anticipate, listen, adapt.
Okay, makes sense. So prediction is like the initial radar, giving a sense of what to expect. Now, what's the next key strategy for tackling that feeling of speed?
The next effective strategy is, as we touched on earlier, the powerful technique of shadowing.
Ah, shadowing again. We talked about it earlier for improving speaking speed and naturalness. Now we're looking at how it helps listening comprehension, especially with fast speech.
Exactly. As a listening technique, shadowing involves listening to a sentence or segment and immediately repeating it almost simultaneously. The key is trying to mimic their pace, pronunciation, and intonation as closely as possible in real time.
Like being a real-time auditory echo. Sounds challenging, needs concentration, especially when it's fast.
It certainly can be demanding, especially at first with fast speech. But it's incredibly effective for training your ear and brain to process rapid English more efficiently. Why? The act of simultaneously listening and repeating forces your brain and mouth to work together at that faster pace. It's like exercising your listening muscles to be quicker, more responsive.
Building a stronger, more efficient neural pathway between hearing and speaking, improving processing speed and comprehension.
Precisely. Developing that crucial muscle memory for processing spoken English faster. The more you practice shadowing fast speech, the more efficiently you'll process and understand the meaning in real time. You narrow that frustrating gap between just hearing the words and fully comprehending them in rapid exchanges.
Makes intuitive sense. Physically trying to keep up forces your brain to operate faster. We have a couple of example sentences in the material for practicing shadowing, right? Want to try them now? Focusing on listening comprehension.
Sure, let's do it. First example. Let's all plan to meet at the cozy little coffee shop right around 3 years this afternoon. Try shadowing that, matching the speed and flow. Here we go. Let's all plan to meet at the cozy little coffee shop right around 3 there this afternoon.
Let's all plan to meet at the cozy little coffee shop right around 3 this afternoon. You can really feel how the words link and flow naturally at speed, right?
Yes, it's about internalizing that natural rhythm and connectedness. Okay, ready for a second sentence, maybe a bit faster.
Okay.
This one. I'll definitely send you a quick text message just as soon as I actually get there. Try shadowing that accurately.
I'll definitely send you a quick text message just as soon as I actually get there. You can definitely hear the pace pick up there. Requires more focus and quicker processing to keep up and repeat accurately.
It does indeed. And that increased focus and cognitive effort during shadowing fast speech is precisely why it's such effective training for listening comprehension. You're pushing your brain to operate faster. With consistent practice, this rapid processing feels more natural, less overwhelming.
Okay, so we've explored prediction to anticipate the flow and shadowing to train our brains for faster processing. What's the third and final key strategy for navigating fast English?
The third crucial element is the consistent practice of ear training.
Ear training. We touched on this earlier when talking about sounding natural, especially regarding different accents.
Exactly. Often when English is spoken quickly, especially with an unfamiliar accent, it can sound like just a continuous, indistinct stream of sounds, not clear words. A big barrier for many learners.
I know that feeling. Your brain struggles to segment the rapid sounds into words you know. And different accents definitely compound the challenge. Someone from one place can sound very different from someone else, even speaking fluent English.
Precisely. So the most effective solution: actively and consistently expose yourself to as much variety in naturally spoken English as possible.
So consciously listen to diverse content, different podcasts with varied speakers, movies, TV with actors from different backgrounds, online videos from various regions.
Exactly. The more diverse your exposure, the more your ears and brain attune to recognizing and understanding different accents, speaking styles, and the flow of fast speech from different people. Like learning a musical scale, the more you hear it, the more familiar it becomes. Immerse yourself in the rich, varied soundscape of English.
And it's probably important not to get discouraged if you don't understand every word, especially at first.
Absolutely. Initially, focus on grasping the overall gist or main idea, not deciphering every single word. As you get more comfortable and your ear tunes in, you'll naturally pick up more details. It's progressive.
The material also mentions a practical tip: slowing down playback speed.
Oh, yes. Incredibly useful, especially when starting. Slowing down gives your brain more time to process words and hear how they connect. Lets you dissect the flow, identify words lost at full speed. Then, as comprehension improves, gradually increase the speed back to normal. Like training wheels on a bike, crucial initial support you phase out.
Fantastic analogy. Builds confidence and skills gradually, less overwhelmingly.
And, like everything in language learning, consistency is key for ear training. The more regularly you expose yourself to diverse spoken English, the better you'll understand fast conversations. Consistent, varied exposure.
So to wrap up navigating fast conversations, 3 powerful strategies. Prediction, using context linguistic knowledge to anticipate. Shadowing, mimicking pace pronunciation to boost real-time processing. Ear training, exposing yourself to variety, using tools like slowing playback.
Exactly. These are active, empowering techniques. You take a proactive role, not just feeling passive and overwhelmed by the pace.
So next time you're listening, podcast, news, chat, try consciously applying just one of these. Pay attention to how it impacts your comprehension.
It might feel challenging at first, require effort, but like any skill, it improves with practice. Be patient. Note how following fast conversations gradually becomes easier, more intuitive, more enjoyable.
Exactly. Instead of feeling lost in a whirlwind of words, you'll be better equipped to stay with the speakers, keep up, and truly understand the content. Wouldn't that be a fantastic feeling? And the quality of the material you shared this time is really insightful. It's clear you've been engaging with that Mastering Fast English Conversations resource. Commendable choice. Shows real commitment to improving comprehension, especially with fast speech, a big hurdle for many learners. So sincerely well done for seeking out such targeted material.
Absolutely. Today we've delved deep into the content you shared, aiming to extract the most practical, applicable tips you can use daily to enhance understanding of rapid English. Our goal: foster greater confidence, reduce that feeling of being overwhelmed.
And the material you provided does a great job outlining 3 key overarching strategies. It really boils down to 3 actionable steps we've unpacked today.
That's a great summary. So we focused on active listening, intentionally engaging to understand the core message. Then speech reductions, those common shortcuts and blendings native speakers use. And finally, consistent practice using authentic, real-world materials strategically.
And these 3 strategies, though seemingly straightforward, are potent when applied consistently. They can make a tangible difference in confidently comprehending fast English.
Indeed. Let's revisit that first strategy, active listening. It's more than just hearing words. It's a conscious effort to fully concentrate, understand the core message, key info, speaker's intent. Focused engagement.
Definitely not just passively letting sounds wash over you, but actively engaging your brain, directing full attention to understanding.
Precisely. Like the difference between passively reading and actively studying a text, taking notes. When actively listening, you're reading the spoken words for deeper meaning, digging beneath the surface sounds.
Good way to put it. Like hearing background music versus putting on headphones and focusing on lyrics and melody. Passive exposure versus intentional engagement.
Excellent analogy. The podcast you shared offered a practical tip for shifting from passive hearing to active listening.
Oh, useful. What was the technique?
They recommended consistently asking yourself one key question right after hearing a sentence or segment. What is the main idea being conveyed here?
What is the main idea? Direct and strategically focused.
Exactly. This simple internal question compels you to engage, process the info, synthesize it into the speaker's main point, rather than letting sounds pass by without cognitive processing.
And the podcast gave clear examples to show how this works, right?
They did. Let's recap those. Someone says, I had an incredibly long day at work. So I treated myself to my favorite ice cream on the way home, actively listening and asking, what's the main idea?
Yeah.
You don't get bogged down in work details or ice cream flavor. The core message is, tired day, bought ice cream as a reward comfort.
You capture the essence, the central point.
Precisely. Not memorizing every word, but extracting the most significant info. Getting to the heart of the message. Another example. She missed her flight to Chicago due to traffic, but luckily rebooked one an hour later. Details of traffic or exact times are secondary. Main idea, missed flight, but successfully rebooked soon after.
You can see how focusing on the main idea helps grasp the overall situation quickly without getting lost in details. So for you, listener, this is a practical exercise. After hearing someone, especially if they're fast, pause briefly, ask yourself, what was their main point?
Exactly. And this skill improves with practice. The more you consciously ask this question, the more automatic seeking the main idea becomes.
And focusing on the main idea helps prevent feeling overwhelmed by a fast stream of words. You train your mind to prioritize key info, not process every syllable, which is daunting at high speed.
Absolutely. And that challenge of processing every syllable leads smoothly to the next challenge highlighted, accurately recognizing speech reductions. Native speakers often shorten and compress words and phrases when speaking quickly.
Yeah, like we're always looking for linguistic shortcuts for efficiency, maybe more relapsed communication.
Precisely. And it often happens subconsciously. We're not always aware of the shortenings and blendings we use. It's ingrained. The podcast gave common examples.
Yes, like what do you want often becomes the compressed what do you want?
What do you want, exactly? Words merge, sounds alter or drop. Almost like a new informal word is created.
And that phonetic shift can throw off a learner expecting clear, separate words.
Absolutely. Another common one mentioned, I am gonna go, frequently becomes the snappier, I'm gonna go.
I'm gonna go, yeah. Go to for going to and wanna for want to are incredibly prevalent.
They are. And while these seem like small changes, they make a substantial difference in understanding fast conversation.
Because your brain tries processing based on the full forms you know. If you're unfamiliar with common reductions, it disrupts processing and comprehension.
Exactly. But the good news is, these reductions often follow predictable patterns. Once you start recognizing these common transformations, it gets easier to decipher fast speech.
So actively training your ear and brain to recognize common sound shifts and blendings.
Precisely. The podcast gave practical examples. Let's try those. If you hear, give me a sec, what's the full version?
Okay, gimme sounds like gimme is short for second, so gimme a second.
Exactly. Gimme blends to gimme, a second, shortens to a sec. Efficient, casual delivery, like solving a little linguistic puzzle. Another one, let me know if you need any help. Full version.
Let me sounds like lemmy, so let me know if you need any help.
Correct again. Let me blends to lemmy, streamlining the phrase. Recognizing these common contractions and blendings is key to understanding faster speech.
It's not about memorizing every possible reduction, but focusing on the most frequent and consistent ones.
Exactly. Like learning the main paths in a forest, not every tree. Once you identify common patterns, understanding fast English becomes less daunting, more manageable, more successful.
Because you're not processing every syllable as unfamiliar, you start seeing connections between reduced and full forms, recognizing familiar building blocks even in streamlined variations.
And that recognition leads nicely to the third crucial technique emphasized. Consistently practicing listening using authentic, real-world English content. This is where you apply your active listening skills and awareness of reductions in an immersive environment, moving from theory to practice.
Makes perfect sense, taking what you learned theoretically and applying it practically.
Exactly. Like learning an instrument. Practicing scales is important, but you don't truly improve musicianship until you play actual songs. Same with language.
Fitting analogy, and the podcast mentioned good sources for this real-world practice.
Yes, things like movies, TV shows, podcasts, any natural, authentic spoken English you encounter and find interesting.
Because this content exposes you to real, often unscripted English, spoken naturally by natives at conversational pace.
Precisely. And they even outlined a clever 3-step practice challenge for tackling this authentic content effectively.
Oh, sounds structured and effective. Tell us about the 3-step challenge.
First step, just listen. Simple. Listen to the chosen content without visual aids, no subtitles, no transcripts, just pure audio immersion.
So, first time through, focus isn't perfect comprehension, but getting a general sense of sounds, rhythm, flow.
Exactly. No pressure to catch every word. Goal is a broad feel for rhythm, speed, intonation. You'll likely notice some reductions subconsciously too. Then, step 2. Introduce support. Listen again with English subtitles or transcript.
So now you connect written words to the sounds, eliminating unclear parts from the first listen.
Exactly. Like having a map for the auditory journey. Helps navigate, connect spoken sounds to written forms, identify reductions, unfamiliar vocabulary, sentence structure, builds recognition, expands understanding.
Bridges the gap between spoken sound and written form, reinforcing understanding and vocabulary.
And then the crucial third step, actively repeat aloud specific parts of what you hear.
Oh, I like that. Brings in active speaking, further engages learning.
It does. Repeating reinforces listening by making you pay closer attention to sounds and pronunciation. It also engages you with pronunciation and flow. You mimic the rhythm and intonation of authentic speech. No longer passive listening. You're actively producing language, imitating.
And repetition isn't just about pronunciation. It reinforces listening by forcing closer attention to rhythm, stress, intonation.
Precisely. This active repetition is incredibly beneficial. Strengthens listening comprehension, improves your own pronunciation and fluency. You internalize natural rhythms, sounds, intonation patterns more deeply through active imitation.
So you see how the steps build. Initial exposure for feel, supported listening to decode, active repetition to internalize sounds and flow, very well-rounded, practical, progressive.
I agree. And the beauty is, you can apply this three-step method to almost any English audio-video content you find engaging. A movie, a podcast, online clips, whatever interests you.
So you improve listening skills and engage with enjoyable content. Makes learning sustainable, less like a chore.
Exactly. All right, final quick recap of the key strategies. 3 core techniques from the material. Active listening, focusing on the main idea. Speech reductions, recognizing common shortcuts like gonna, whatcha. Consistent practice with authentic content, using the 3-step listen, support, repeat method.
And the crucial thing for you, listener, is these aren't just abstract concepts. They're practical techniques you can start implementing today.
Absolutely. And consistency is paramount. The more consistently you practice these techniques, active listening, recognizing reductions, engaging with real content via the 3 steps, the more natural they become, and the more proficient and confident you'll be understanding fast English.
You'll likely notice a real, tangible difference. So as you reflect on today's discussion, here's a final thought-provoking question. Thinking about these 3 techniques, focusing on the main idea, familiarizing yourself with speech reductions, and practicing with authentic content via the 3-step method, what kinds of English media do you personally think would be most beneficial and enjoyable for you to start engaging with to sharpen your listening skills? Consider your interests, comfort level, the English you encounter most. That's your ideal starting point for taking this deep dive further on your own.
An excellent question for listeners to ponder. All right, well, that brings us to the end of our exploration today. We sincerely hope you found this useful and informative, gaining valuable insights and practical techniques for understanding fast English conversations.
Yeah, we truly hope you've learned applicable strategies and feel more equipped and motivated to tackle those rapid-fire exchanges with renewed confidence and a clear plan. And as always, sincere gratitude to you, our listener, for tuning in and engaging with us. We appreciate your curiosity and commitment to language learning. Until our next deep dive, take good care.
Thank you so much for joining us. We value your questions and engagement. Until next time, all the best in your continued learning. Stay curious.
See you then.